Have you ever noticed that the more you try to control everything in your life, the more tired you feel? It's like no matter how tightly you hold the reins, something always slips through your fingers. Maybe it's your health, your family, or your sense of purpose. And even though you've lived long enough to know that life rarely follows a straight path, there's still that tug in your heart. The urge to manage every detail, to keep everything in order. But here's a gentle truth that many people only begin to realize later in life. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in holding on. It's in letting go. Not giving up, not checking out, but truly surrendering the need to control every outcome. And when you do that, life has a funny way of flowing more easily. Things begin to fall into place. You stop pushing so hard and suddenly you feel more peace, more clarity, more joy. If you're over 60, you've already learned a lot about patience, about love, about loss. You've raised families, built careers, overcome hardships. But even with all that wisdom, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking you have to fix everything right now. So today we're going to talk about how releasing that need, letting go of control, can actually make life easier, richer, and more fulfilling. Not by doing less, but by shifting how we think, how we feel, and how we show up. Let's start with something that might sound simple, but can change everything. Letting go of attachment to results. Now, I want you to think back to a time when you were working really hard towards something, a goal, a dream, even a relationship, and it just wouldn't come together. You gave it your all, you stayed up late thinking about it, you prayed, you planned, you did everything right, and still, nothing. Frustrating, isn't it? But here's the thing. Sometimes it's not about the effort. Sometimes it's the pressure we put on ourselves that gets in the way. When you're fixated on how something should turn out, you close yourself off to how it could turn out. Take Margaret, for example. She's a retired nurse, now in her late 60s, and she'd spent months trying to get a consulting role at a local clinic. She was perfect for the job and she wanted it badly. Every day she checked her email, replayed the interview in her head, and tried to figure out what she could have done differently. She started to feel anxious, restless, even defeated. Then one day, after a long phone call with an old friend, she decided to stop waiting. She told herself, "I gave it my best shot. If it's meant to be, it will be." Within a week, she received an unexpected invitation, not from the clinic, but from a nonprofit that needed her skills even more. It paid better, gave her more flexibility, and connected her with a cause she deeply cared about. Margaret let go of the outcome she thought she wanted, and life brought her something better. When we stop obsessing over the results, we give life the space to surprise us. And that leads us to the next shift, mastering your mind and emotions. Now, this one can be tricky, especially if you've spent years being the one everyone else leaned on. You're the rock, the problem solver. But being strong doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means learning how to guide them. Because here's a secret that people don't talk about enough. Your thoughts shape your reality more than anything else. Not your age, not your circumstances, your mindset. Susan, a former teacher now enjoying her early 70s, used to wake up each day overwhelmed by everything she hadn't done. She worried about her kids, about her finances, even about the state of the world. The news would send her into a spiral. Her husband noticed she'd become short-tempered, and her sleep was restless. Then one morning, she came across a quote. "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." It stuck with her. So she started small. Each morning before she got out of bed, she listed 3 things she was grateful for: her garden, her grandchildren, her morning walks. She also began limiting her news intake and meditated for 10 minutes in the evening. It didn't erase her problems, but it gave her a kind of peace she hadn't felt in years. Her mood lifted. Her energy returned. She stopped reacting to everything and started responding with calm and clarity. Your emotions don't have to run the show. You can take the wheel, not by denying how you feel, but by understanding it and then choosing your next step with intention. And that brings us to something that's often overlooked, yet deeply powerful: trusting the timing of your life. I know how hard that can be. When you're young, it feels like there's all the time in the world. But when you're over 60, the pace of life changes. You might feel like time is slipping away, like you need to hurry and make something happen. But rushing never brings peace. In fact, it often delays the very things we want most. Barbara, a widow in her early 70s, had a dream of moving to the coast and starting a small ceramics studio. But year after year, something got in the way. Family needs, money concerns, health scares. At one point, she almost gave up. But instead of pushing harder, she focused on preparing, selling unused items, taking care of her health, learning about the local community. She trusted that when the time was right, the door would open. And eventually, it did. A friend introduced her to a small rental cottage by the sea, perfectly within her budget. She moved in last spring and now spends her mornings walking the beach and her afternoons shaping clay with her hands, finally living the life she dreamed of, but only after she let go of trying to control the timing. Sometimes, things don't happen when we want them to. But that doesn't mean they're not going to happen. Life isn't in a rush, even if we are. When you stop pressing the gas pedal, when you ease off and trust that life has a rhythm of its own, you'll start to feel that peace again. That quiet knowing that you're right where you need to be. So often we chase after things thinking they'll make us happy. But what if happiness isn't something to chase? What if it's something to uncover, already here, waiting underneath all that worry and stress? You see, the beauty of this chapter in life isn't in doing more or having more. It's in being more. More at peace. More present. More aligned with who you truly are. Letting go of control doesn't mean letting go of hope. It means releasing the pressure and opening yourself to a life that flows, rather than one that's forced. It's not about giving up, it's about giving in to something wiser, calmer, more generous. And that's just the beginning. Because once you start shifting your mindset and trusting the process, something magical begins to happen. You stop living from fear and start moving from purpose. Now let's keep going. There's another part of this that changes everything. Purpose is a powerful thing. It doesn't need to be big or flashy. You don't have to start a business, write a book, or climb a mountain. Purpose can be found in the smallest, most ordinary moments. Tending to your garden, calling a friend who's having a hard day, sharing your wisdom with a neighbor or your grandchildren. When you wake up in the morning with a sense of why you're here, everything feels lighter. You don't feel like you're drifting. You're anchored. Frank, a retired mechanic in his early 70s, used to feel like the best parts of his life were behind him. He loved working with his hands, but after retirement, he didn't know what to do with his time. The days felt long and empty. Then one day, his daughter asked if he could help fix a bike for her neighbor's little boy. It only took an afternoon, but the boy's smile sparked something in him. Frank started repairing bikes for kids in the neighborhood just for fun. Word spread. Soon, people began dropping by with old bikes, asking for help. Frank wasn't chasing money, praise, or recognition. He was acting from a place of quiet purpose, doing what he loved, serving where he could. He found his rhythm again. That's what happens when you act from your heart, not from desperation. You see, desperation feels like panic. It's rushed. It's noisy. It comes from fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of time running out. But purpose? Purpose is steady. Purpose whispers. You're right on time. And when you act from that place, you begin to attract the right people, the right opportunities, and the right energy into your life. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do that? What if things still feel out of control? That's when we talk about one of the most powerful shifts of all, letting go of the need to control. For many of us, especially those who've spent a lifetime taking care of others, being in control can feel like safety. If we can just plan enough, anticipate enough, fix enough, then nothing will go wrong, right? But life isn't a machine. It's not something we can tighten with a wrench or program with a code. It's unpredictable. It changes. And no matter how much we try, we can't control everything. Diane knows this well. She spent most of her adult life trying to manage every detail of her world. Her kids, her schedule, even how her husband folded the laundry. She always meant well. She just wanted things to be done right. But over time, all that managing became exhausting. Her relationships became tense. She felt like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. One evening, after an argument with her son over something small, she broke down. And in that moment, something inside her softened. She realized she was trying to control things out of love, but also out of fear. Fear that if she let go, everything would fall apart. But what actually happened was the opposite. She started letting people handle their own tasks, make their own mistakes, and live their own way, even if it wasn't the way she would have done it. And you know what? Life got easier. Her son started opening up more. Her husband relaxed. And most importantly, Diane felt a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to carry what was never yours to hold. You focus on what is yours, your thoughts, your actions, your responses. That's where your true power is. You don't have to micromanage life to make it work for you. In fact, when you try to do that, you often push away the very things you're hoping for. But when you loosen your grip, when you breathe and say, "It's okay. I trust that life is unfolding as it should," you open the door to peace, to connection, and to healing. And as you begin to let go of that need for control, something else starts to bloom. It's subtle at first, but soon it becomes a quiet strength that colors everything you do. It's the energy of abundance. Abundance isn't just about money or material things. It's a mindset, a way of seeing the world. When you live from a place of scarcity, you're always focused on what's missing, what you don't have, what didn't work out, what you might lose. But when you live from a place of abundance, you focus on what's already here. Walter, a widower in his mid-70s, used to worry constantly about whether he'd saved enough money to last through retirement. Even though his bills were covered and he had a little cushion, he was always afraid of running out. That fear kept him from enjoying his life. He wouldn't travel, wouldn't join the senior center, wouldn't even treat himself to a dinner out. Then one day, after reading a book about gratitude, he decided to try something new. Every morning he made a list of 10 things he already had that made his life rich. His warm bed, his morning coffee, the sound of birds outside, the laughter of his great-grandkids, his health, his memories, even the freedom of having time to himself. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, Walter's mindset began to shift. He started saying yes more. He booked a weekend trip with a friend. He joined a local woodworking class. He began to smile more. Not because he suddenly had more money, but because he stopped living like he didn't have enough. Abundance isn't about getting more. It's about noticing more. It's about saying, "What I have is enough. I am enough. And more will come if and when I need it." That shift, from fear to trust, from scarcity to abundance, is one of the most powerful transformations you can experience. And you don't have to wait for some big event or perfect condition to start living that way. You can start today, right where you are, with what you have. All of these shifts, letting go of results, mastering your thoughts, trusting the timing, acting with purpose, releasing control, and living in abundance, they're not just ideas, they're practices. They're choices you get to make each day. You might not be able to change your age, your past, or the world around you, but you can change how you move through it. And when you do, life starts to move with you. Sometimes the most powerful change doesn't come from doing more, it comes from being more. Being more at peace, being more grounded, being more open to the life that's already unfolding around you. And this is what happens when you stop chasing, forcing, and trying to control every piece of the puzzle. You create space for calm, for joy, and for life to surprise you in the best of ways. Linda, a retired small business owner, spent most of her life in charge. She ran a team, made big decisions, handled tough situations with grace. But after retiring, she found herself restless. She couldn't sit still. Every day felt like a to-do list she had to fill, even if there wasn't anything pressing. Her mind kept saying, "You need to do something. You need to stay busy." Then one afternoon, she sat on her back porch, watching the sunlight move across her garden. For the first time in weeks, she didn't reach for her phone, didn't check the clock, didn't think about what needed to be done. She just sat there, and something inside her softened. She realized that she wasn't here to keep fixing things. She was here to enjoy what she'd worked so hard to create. From that moment, Linda started doing things differently. She still made plans, of course, but she didn't rush through them. She started painting again, something she hadn't done in years. She took slow walks without counting steps. She listened to birdsong the way others might listen to music. Life didn't stop. It just stopped feeling like a race. And maybe that's the lesson many of us need to hear, especially now, especially in this stage of life. You're not behind. You're not late. You haven't missed your chance. You're right on time. Right here. Right now. You've earned the right to slow down, not to quit, but to live more intentionally. You've earned the right to let go of what no longer serves you, old worries, old regrets, old expectations. You've earned the right to feel good again. And the truth is, life responds to your energy. When you bring calm, life becomes calmer. When you bring gratitude, life feels fuller. When you bring trust, life shows up with grace. This doesn't mean you'll never have another problem or challenge. Of course you will. That's part of being human. But you'll move through those moments with more strength because you're not fighting everything anymore. You're flowing with it. And that changes everything. So what can you take away from all this? You don't need to control every outcome to live a meaningful life. You don't need to chase after everything to feel successful. You don't need to fix everyone's problems to feel loved or valuable. What you do need is to trust. To trust yourself. To trust the timing. To trust that what's meant for you won't pass you by. To trust that even now, especially now, there's still beauty waiting to unfold. Every morning you wake up is a fresh opportunity, not to do more, but to be more present, to breathe, to smile, to connect, to reflect, maybe even to let yourself just be. So if you're holding on too tight to outcomes, to fears, to things beyond your control, let this be the moment you loosen your grip. Not because it's easy, but because it's freeing. Because you deserve that freedom. And because when you let go, life finds a way to meet you with open arms. Your journey isn't over. In many ways, it's just getting deeper, richer, more soulful. And the more you release the pressure, the more you'll notice how good it feels to just live. Let yourself enjoy what you've built. Let yourself trust in what's ahead. Let yourself receive the peace that comes from knowing you don't have to have it all figured out. So I'd love to hear from you. Has there been a time in your life when letting go brought you unexpected peace or joy? Share it in the comments below. I promise you, someone else might need to hear your story today. If you found this message helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life for more content that uplifts, encourages, and reminds you that the best is never behind you. You are not too late. You are not too old. You are not out of time. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Here's to living your best life, at any age.